Thank you for none of you asking me the expansion question. I think I won $5 on that.
Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby was so unknowingly spot on during last week's media days. Of course, no reporters were going to ask about the conference expanding. The more appropriate question, as we learned 7 days later, would have been, will the conference be collapsing? I actually don't think Bowlesby had that in mind, and I really don't think he saw this Texas exodus coming. How do I know that? Take a listen to his reasoning as to why he thought the climate wasn't right for conference realignment.
You have to remember the last time around, the last round of conference realignments was all driven by cable households. And we find ourselves now in a rapidly shrinking cable environment.
A rapidly shrinking cable environment, but a rapidly changing media environment. And when Texas and Oklahoma were asked by the Big 12 if they wanted to lock themselves in to a 5-year extension of the current TV deal, they said, not a chance, Boomer. And so that's how we find ourselves with this. Texas and Oklahoma potentially just days away from asking the SEC for membership. Kirk Bohls of the Austin American-Statesman joins us now. He's reported that this request could come as soon as Monday. Now, Kirk, the current TV deal has Texas and Oklahoma under contract with the Big 12 until 2025. But what are the chances that we see both of these schools competing in the SEC before that point?
I think that makes perfect sense, Jake. I don't think sticking around another 4 years with all the vitriol and acrimony there's going to be, between Texas and OU and the rest of the league, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So to me, if this goes through, and it may be as soon as next week, I would think Texas and Oklahoma would do everything they could to buy out, however many years they would have remaining on their Big 12 contract. We know it's not going to start this fall, obviously, and probably not next year. But, if they could start it, the year 23, 24, lop off a couple of years with the Big 12, I would imagine that would be amenable.
Now, Kirk, in terms of obstacles that could prevent this from taking place, we know that Texas A&M voting no alone can't derail this, but now politicians are starting to get involved. We saw a legislature from Plano today say that he's working on a bill that would require legislative approval for Texas to change conferences. How much legs does something like that have?
Probably Governor Greg Abbott would be the only thing that could stand in the way of this coming to fruition. And the reason why I would probably dismiss that as a serious threat would be, he's appointed all these regents. Kevin Eltife, the chairman of the Texas Board of Regents, was appointed and reappointed, by Governor Abbott. So it's just hard to believe that, Governor Abbott hasn't been kept abreast of all this.
And finally, Kirk, how much better of a time are you going to have at SEC games where, as we know, it just seems to mean more?
No disrespect, but you bring in a Kansas or an Iowa State or West Virginia, it's not the same as bringing in a Georgia or Florida or an Alabama. It's just not. And football, moves the needle more than anything. So I think it's going to be just spectacular. And I really wouldn't mind another Texas A&M game here and there. So maybe the rivalry isn't dead after all, Jake.
Kirk, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us tonight. And a quick update. We learned this at about 9 o'clock tonight. The Texas A&M Board of Regents will meet on Monday at 5 p.m. Central. And I want to read you this direct quote because it's really funny. For, quote, discussion and possible action on contractual and governance issues relating to Texas A&M University and the Southeastern Conference. Translation, we're not happy about this, and we don't want to play in the same conference as Texas. We'll be right back after this.